If you were to explain string theory to
Yeah.
me like I was 12,
Yeah.
how would you do it?
Yeah, I would simply say this. Your 12-year-old self probably knew that matter was made up of stuff called molecules that themselves are made up of atoms that are stuck together. And the atoms are made of smaller things, electrons in orbit around a nucleus that has neutrons and protons. And neutrons and protons, they even have smaller particles called quarks. The question is that the end of the story? Is it electrons and quarks and you're done? Everything is made up of them. Or might there be a finer level of structure inside the electron, inside the quark? You take a powerful microscope and you look deeply, would you see anything else? And the idea of string theory is, yeah, you would. Inside an electron or inside a quark, you'd see a little tiny vibrating filament. And the different vibrations of the string yield the different particles. So much like a string on a violin, when it vibrates in one pattern, you hear it as a C or an A sharp.
Uh-huh.
The different vibrations of the strings in string theory, they don't produce different musical tones. They produce different particles. So a string vibrating one way, electron. A string vibrating another way, a quark. So matter at its most fundamental level, if you were to take a powerful microscope and look deeply inside of any piece of matter, you'd see all these little vibrating filaments, these vibrating strings. That's the idea of the theory.
So two questions come to mind when you say that, which is how do you know? And the second one is, what if you zoomed in even further?
Yeah, good. Both good questions. How do we know? We don't. Everything I just said could be utter nonsense. I don't think it is. But the only way that you know if an idea in science is correct is you need to make predictions that you can go out and test, measure, and see whether you can confirm the ideas. We don't have the technology to look sufficiently deeply into matter to see the strings. We don't have the particle accelerators, the particle colliders with enough power to slam things together to access this finer level of structure that the theory is suggesting. So you might say then, where do these ideas come from, right? Answer, mathematics. The power of mathematics is that it can take us to places that we can't yet go, literally, using equipment. When we look at the mathematics of quantum mechanics, the mathematics of general relativity, and we put that math inside the math of string theory, all of a sudden the equations work. They come together harmoniously. And we're like, whoa, the math of quantum mechanics, we're confident in that. We have predictions and observations. The math of general relativity, we're confident in that. It makes predictions we've confirmed through observations. Now, we're willing to go where the math takes us. And the math takes us in this approach to these vibrating filaments.
These vibrating strings.
These vibrating strings.
So if you pass me the string
Yeah,
here.
sure.
So essentially, if you zoom into every cell on my body,
Yeah.
you will find that there's different shaped strings vibrating.
That's the prediction.
That's the prediction.
Correct.
And what is causing them to vibrate in a certain way?
Yeah.
Who's telling them?
Yeah. The idea is we recognize that the universe has energy. If you're to ask me, where does the energy come from? Nobody can answer that. That is the question of why there is something rather than nothing. The something is a fundamental currency called energy. If string theory is correct, then that energy manifests as these vibrational patterns of the strings themselves. If the theory is wrong, then the energy manifests through other things like motions of particles and the way in which space-time warps and curves. But if string theory is correct, the energy of the universe is manifested in the vibrational patterns of strings. Now, when you say like, who mandates that that string vibrates in one pattern and that string vibrates in a different pattern? If we go back to the Big Bang, the energetic explosion that resulted in space expanding, the detailed way in which that happened ultimately dictates how this or that string vibrates in the aftermath of that rapid cosmological explosion.
Does this string theory idea tell us anything about why we're here?
I would like to think that it does. It's very indirect. And we are aggregates of a huge number of particles, or if string theory is correct, a huge number of strings. I mean, inside your body, you've got something like a billion particles. And if string theory is correct, each of those particles is a vibrating filament. It is a gargantuan challenge to understand why those billion particles came together to yield you or me or somebody else. But again, that's a historical progression. And I think we understand the broad outlines of that narrative, that there was some initial event called the Big Bang that resulted in space expanding. The energy of that Big Bang ultimately transmuted into particles. Those particles were wafting through space. Gravity caused collections of those particles to clump together. Some of them clumped together into stars, like our sun. Some of them clumped together into planets, like our Earth. And on our Earth, some of those particles began to coalesce into more exotic and refined forms, giving rise to atoms, giving rise to molecules. And over the course of billions of years on our planet, those little molecules grew into more complex structures, ultimately giving first cells. And once you have a cell, cells divide, and they come together into larger multicellular aggregates that give rise to the beginnings of life in the ocean. And those life forms evolve further until they can walk out of the ocean and begin to live on land. And they begin to stand upright. And after a billion more years, you and I are sitting here at this table. And so, yeah, there is a story. That's the brief version that takes us from the Big Bang to us on planet Earth.
Is it theoretical that this is all just I was going to say perception, but the other word might be a simulation of sorts. Theoretically, we don't even know if yesterday exists, or if it was just, we were just implanted with the memory of it.
Absolutely right.
We're in this age of AI now. And I wondered if this insurgence of AI and how powerful it is, and if you imagine it on a sort of an exponential curve, has it made you question some of your fundamental assumptions about that overarching question of why we're here?
Well, yeah. In fact, even before AI, we were tussling with the very notion that you mentioned, which is all we ever have access to is now, right? We can try to remember yesterday's now, but as you say, that's happening right now through patterns that are in my brain or yours that we think reflect something that happened yesterday or the day before. But that's a leap of faith, right? So there's a kind of, skeptical nightmare scenario where we begin to question everything. Is this table real? Am I really here? Am I a simulation sitting inside some computer right now? Are we in the Matrix right now? These are the kinds of things which you naturally can come to when you take a deeply skeptical attitude to the nature of reality. Bottom line is, I can't convince myself, and certainly I can't convince you that we're not in the Matrix. Why? We could be. It is logically consistent and sensible to imagine that you and I are sitting in some computer. Maybe it's not, some dark dystopian computer the way it was in the Matrix. Maybe there's a kid in, 29th century Earth who's in his or her garage right now, and they came up with this wonderful computer program, and they're simulating historical episodes in the past, and they happen to allow you and I to exist sitting at this table. I don't know how to prove that that's not the case. What I can say is, if I'm willing to buy into that, everything falls apart. I can't trust my reasoning. I can't even trust my thinking that it's logical to imagine that individual, because that individual may have implanted the false reasoning that it could be logical for us to be sitting here. What do I do at that point? And so, as a scientist, what I say is, I'm going to allow that as a possibility, and then I'm going to park it right over here. I allow it, I look at it every so often, and I say, that's scary, that possibility that we're in a simulation, but I'm not going to let it overwhelm me, because then I'll be stuck.
The simulation argument popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom relies on probability.
Yeah.
It essentially says that if an advanced civilization, which I would argue we're an advanced civilization, ever develops the technological capacity to run conscious, high-fidelity computer simulations of their ancestors, they will likely run millions of or billions of them, and because these simulated realities would vastly outnumber the single raw physical universe, any given conscious observer is statistically almost certainly living inside a software code rather than base reality.
The big assumption is, can you create a computer program that has self-awareness, that has consciousness? Nobody knows the answer to that. I've spoken to some of today's AI researchers who think that ChatGPT is conscious, who think that Claude is conscious. Now, I talk to them and I'm respectful. That's the kind of person I am. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, are you kidding me? You really think that ChatGPT has feelings, that it thinks about its own existence and has anxieties? I think it can simulate that, but regardless, I don't think today's technology is there. Is it possible that tomorrow's technology, broadly defined, a year, 5 years, 100 years, really will yield self-aware, sentient, artificial systems? Yeah, I do think it's possible. Now, not everybody agrees with that. I mean, no one knows, right? It's a logical possibility, but we don't know. Let us assume, following Nick Bostrom, that consciousness can be created in a mechanical box. If that's possible, then Nick simply says, look, our progeny in the future, they're going to be fascinated with creating sentient systems. And so they're going to create millions and billions and trillions of sentient systems in the box. And they're going to get really elaborate and create a version where the sentient beings are led to think that they're on a planet. And in fact, they're going to do it 1,000 billion trillion different ways. Some are going to be a planet like Earth. Some are going to be on a planet like Mars. Some are going to be a planet like around some star in the Andromeda galaxy. They're going to be an enormous number of simulated beings, enormous number of universes that are simulated. So the question is, if we have one real universe, let's say this is real, and a gazillion artificial ones that are created in various laptop computers of the future, we're one of a billion, trillion, zillion instantiations of people who think that they're real. Now, one truly is real. The other are not real. So if you're just talking about odds, the odds are anybody who thinks they're real is not. The odds are anybody who's got a self-aware sense of the world is probably in a simulation.
You used anxiety as a sort of a proxy for consciousness, almost like being able to feel these things.
Yeah.
I guess the question then becomes, like, what is it? What is anxiety?
Yeah.
Is it an electrical signal going through it from...
I do think it is. I think that love and hate and anxiety and jealousy and gratitude and grief and all human emotion is nothing but electrical impulses going through our brains. And an electrical impulse is just particles moving or strings moving along various connections. I think that is all that it is. Now, some people hear it and they're like, wow, that is a pretty bleak way of looking at life. We're these wondrous beings who can have all this emotion, right? The emotion captured by Shakespeare in the sonnets, right? The emotion captured by Beethoven in the Ninth Symphony. You can't reduce that to electrical signals in the brain. And I say, yeah, you can. I really do think that you can. I don't think that diminishes the wonder of what we can feel and sense and articulate and express through the various ways that we have, be it through music or theater or art or literature or poetry. Yeah, I am as awestruck by our capacity to create as anybody else. But in the end, I think it all does reduce to electrical impulses going through this gray piece of meat in this bone cage that's sitting on our shoulders.
And if you imagine any rate of improvement from today, presumably at some point in the future, our future ancestors, our future progeny, you called them?
Yeah.
Would be able to create.
Why not? That's my view. I don't think there's something special about the brain as a substrate. I think as long as you have the same electrical impulses, if they're housed in silicon inside a metallic box, I don't think that makes them fundamentally different than what's happening inside of our heads. Now, philosophers argue this, psychologists argue this. They say, no. It's not just the brain, it's the connection to the body, it's the tactile sense of the world, it's the olfactory sense of the world, it's the visual sense. It's only when you put it all together that you get the full experience of what it means to be self-aware human being. And my view is, well, maybe that's true, but if so, give the artificial version tactile sense and olfactory sense and visual sense. We will have the capacity to do this. At that point, I just don't see a fundamental difference between the artificial version and, shall we call it, the organic. And so, yeah, I think there's a really interesting argument to be made that simulations will outnumber real worlds, and therefore there's a chance that right now we are in one of those simulated worlds.
Does it change anything, even if that's true?
Nah, I don't think it does. And I think that's the beauty. If I'm in a simulation, I'm going to live out my life in this simulation to the fullest.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to think that as a physicist, what I do, what my colleagues do, is try to figure out the laws of the universe writ large. But if we're in a simulation and all we're doing is figuring out the laws that the 15-year-old futuristic kid decided to impose on this artificial world, hey, that's not a bad way to spend your time too.
On this subject of AI, a lot of people that have sat here, people like Geoffrey Hinton, have told me that it's quite inconceivable that when there is a more intelligent life form on this planet, i.e. AI, which is accelerating in its intelligence towards superintelligence and AGI and all these terms that these smart people use, it's inconceivable that we will remain in control.
Yeah.
Logically, that kind of also stacks up.
It does. But I think there are alternatives. We tend to speak very much at the extremes, right? Humans are in control. AI is in control. AI wipes us out for reasons that might be benign or might be dystopian. It seems to me that what will likely happen is something more in the middle, which is we are going to work with artificial systems. We're doing it right now. And look how quickly we have acclimated to a world that would be unthinkable in 2021. There are many examples now, but there's a beautiful one that's on my mind. An 80-year-old mathematical conjecture, I think it's called the Jacobian conjecture, was solved very recently by a mathematician using AI. I see us blending with AI, not necessarily that we have implants, but maybe we will, but there will not be as sharp a distinction between the biological intelligence and the artificial intelligence. And that, to me, if that ultimately yields a new life form that no longer can be called human, that may be the way things evolve. And so evolution is something that is inherent to how we got here. Why would we think that this moment in the evolutionary progression was the end of it all? We weren't going to continue to evolve. And maybe the continuation of our evolution is in partnership with the artificial intelligence systems that we ourselves create.
That we give birth to.
Yeah. It's us, right? It's our creation. It's not an alien. We haven't been taken over. And so, yeah, I think that is a real possible way that this story plays out.
How do you feel about it?
I am fine with it. I think that we tend to become very attached to the way things are. And we gain a sense of the way things are is the way it will always be. I think that's a natural way that we humans have lived our lives. Why? Because the timescales for change in our past have been relatively slow, right? We lived, 30, 40, 50, call it 80 years, 100 years, whatever. But the timescales for change were typically much larger than that. The timescales for political change and the timescales for technological change, much larger. So as a species, we've grown accustomed to the thought that, yeah, what we see is how it will always be. But of course, as we look back through history, we can see the changes. And so we're uncomfortable with change because we're unused to living through that kind of change at the kind of speed that we are and will continue to encounter. But I think we just have to get with it. Now, look, I don't want AI system to wipe us out, don't get me wrong. But I think if we recognize that change is happening, we can embrace it in a way that will have an outcome that will be acceptable, that will in fact be wonderful in the things that it will allow us to do.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.